science fiction. We make no guarantees, however, how long it will remain fiction. Fiction. Fiction.
Hello, erection salutations, all you cognonauts out there, and welcome to Exofathom, the show that dares to explore the outside reaches of understanding. I am Nick, and I am joined, as always, by my lovely co-hosts. Ayla, how you doing?
I'm hanging in there. How are you?
Hanging in there as well. Thank you so much. And we got Mike here. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. You know, hanging in there. It's Friday. I think it's Friday.
Your response. So now I feel like I'm missing a response here.
Well, then I'll change. It's been a happy Friday.
All right. Well, yeah.
More
You sound
than
very certain about that, so I'll take your word for it.
Geez. Now, how you doing, man?
Very good. Thanks, man. Yeah. We had some technical difficulties all day with the internet, unfortunately, but we're back and up and running again and feeling like normal humans again. So can't complain. Yeah.
Did you turn it off and on again?
I did that like 17 times, honestly. I turned it off like at every point you could possibly turn it off.
And of course, after
still didn't work.
And then after he does that, like I waltz in and I'm like, have you tried unplugging it?
Yeah.
I've done all of those things. I'm like, well, maybe it needs a little finesse or
maybe somebody else needs to unplug it, and that's what I'll do. Yeah,
that's the magic right there.
That's it. Yeah. Unfortunately, it did not work, so we were struggling with that.
Well, and then we had other technical difficulties. Like we took our car in for like brake service, and I called ahead, and they're like, "Oh, it's 180," and I'm like, "Oh, that sucks," but that's okay. And then we had the estimate back, and admittedly, it's been a long time since I've did anything to the brakes. But oh man.
Yeah, and then needless to say, it's been a big Friday for us. So we're very happy to unwind and kind of put a bow on this night with an episode of Exofathom.
That's with like grit teeth.
Yeah. Totally. And thank you guys so much for listening out there. We very much appreciate you.
Oh, yes, we do. We really do. Yeah. Like, you guys are the best, whoever you are.
Yes, I concur. And we very much appreciate you guys listening. Today, we're going to talk about the concept of Frisson. For those non-French speakers, that translates to shivers. Specifically, the type of shivers or goosebumps that you get when listening to a beautiful piece of music or being confronted by something beautiful, whether it be a piece of art, a piece of cinema, a piece of music, an interaction with a loved one. There's this sensation that we all get from time to time that brings an electrical charge through our bodies, and our hairs stand on end, and we feel this welling of emotion. And I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into that tonight and get into maybe some of the mechanics of what's going on with that, and then maybe some fun speculation about what we think is, what we just say, the formula to the ultimate sort of Frisson experience. So yeah, I don't necessarily have a question to start off with. I just wanted to kind of introduce the audience to the concept and then open it up with a conversation. I got a list of questions for you guys. But before, let's see. Yeah, so let's just jump right into the definition of Frisson, which is French for shiver. It's also known as aesthetic chills or musical chills. And it's a psychological response to rewarding auditory and or visual stimuli that often induces a pleasurable or otherwise positively balanced affective state and transient paresthesia, which is skin tingling or chills. And it's sometimes along with piloerection, which is the goosebumps, or pupil dilation. And some of the causes for this, and this is when we use the word frisson, it's technically specific for music only, but I kind of liken it to, just that same response you would get in any sort of confrontation of a beautiful object or an inspiring object. So we won't necessarily limit it to just music in our conversation, but for the audience's edification, when frisson is mentioned, it's usually in the context of music. And some of the causes of this sensation within the music world, one of the first causes that they list here is violations of musical expectancy. So it's a rhythmic or a dynamic, harmonic, or melodic violations of a person's explicit or implicit expectations are associated with the musical frisson as a prerequisite. Loud or very high or low frequencies, also quickly varying sounds, have been shown to arouse the same experience. Frisson also acts as sort of an emotional contagion. And this is best sort of illustrated like when a piece of music in particular elicits an emotion, a human emotion, whether that's sadness or happiness, something jubilant. You think of Beethoven's Ode to Joy, very happy, very jubilant. Or you can think of something more sad and, maybe morose, but that's that trigger that the music does to your body in eliciting those emotions is very closely associated with this concept of frisson. And then the other, I guess you could say, trigger is called environmental and social context. And it can be amplified by one's environment and by the social context that a piece, given music, is listened in. So, for example, if one listens to a movie soundtrack in a cinema, the overall volume and the film's story will provide intentional context, likely creating a deeper emotional feeling. The culture and nationality, which I think is interesting, of both the piece and the composer will affect the levels of frisson felt, or if frisson is even felt at all. If one is very familiar with the music built upon the established Western musical traditions, deviations will violate the listener's expectation, which can also trigger this emotion. And let's see. And then if it's a non-Western cultures, deviations from the Western musical tradition may prove to have no side effect on the listener. So they're kind of getting into this concept that culturally frisson can be different. So if you live in a culture where musical variation is expected more often than not, then you would respond differently to those triggers. And yeah, so that's just a brief overview of what causes this sensation. And really, I didn't want to get too deep into the technicalities because I'm more wanting to have a conversation around this feeling that we all feel and that we all get. So without much further ado, I want to bring in my amazing co-hosts. Ayla, what makes you feel this way? Is it for you? Is it music? Is it something else? Because I think that, and maybe I'm wrong, I feel like you can get this response from not just music.
I would agree with that. It's funny because the word visceral comes to mind a lot. And I was like, oh, let me look that up because I always used visceral, I think, when I meant to express frisson, which is such a weird word. Like if like for a feeling that's so beautiful, that's the word they chose.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's not I guess maybe if you're French, you could say like frisson, but I don't think that that's the way you pronounce it. So
yeah, like they have so many words for love, I mean, yeah, it should be like a more something, or I don't know, like it could have been much more prettier.
right.
But yeah, usually I get that kind of feeling when I watch like good dance performances.
Mm.
And I qualify that because obviously not like there's a big range for me, and I think it varies for everybody. But when I remember seeing American Ballet Theater in New York, and there was like a solo scene, and the man like jumped in the air. And I swear he jumped up, and then somehow there was like an extra and he literally flew in the air, and I'd never seen that. I've seen great dancers on TV, but to see that in person and to kind of almost like feel that like whoa, like I've never seen that before in my life. And
Mm.
it just there was a freedom of like there's a human body defying gravity and like just in a beautiful way. And anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, and I think like when you feel it, you remember it. There's like so many moments with music too, where it's just like keep listening to it over and over and over because it just has this like hypnotic effect.
Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely does. I would definitely agree. It's pretty impressive, and I guess you could say that's like the closest thing is like awe, right?
Mm-hmm.
That feeling of sheer awe, beholding something that you may not even believe that you're seeing. Mike, what
Yeah.
about you, man? What gives you this frisson emotion?
Interesting. Yeah, like it's almost like the total suspension of disbelief, right? Like the
Mm.
the hair raises, you become a little bit more on edge, or I become a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more on edge because what I think of is something much more macabre. I think of Hitchcock's Psycho the first time I saw
Yeah.
it, and especially with that shower sequence, right? When he walks in and the music starts to get louder and louder, and the hairs start to raise, and there's that
Mm-hmm.
it climaxes in that one moment, and everything just goes ding. And that's really what I think of, and it is that collection of sounds and sight. Because I think if I just listened to the soundtrack alone, I wouldn't get the same feeling. So it's
Mm.
both inputs coming together.
Right. Yeah, I
And
definitely would agree with that for sure.
yeah, it's interesting. So, sorry, my mind's gone because it's culturally conditioned too, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you stated earlier. But yeah, no, I would say like that one specific thing, that total suspension of disbelief, where almost you want to leave your body. You're not there, so like the hairs on your arm raise, and all that fun stuff happens.
Oh yeah. Hello?
Intrigue.
Hello. Yeah,
Oh,
I can hear you.
wait.
Oh, well, my screen just went black for some reason. Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh,
I can hear you guys, so that's good. We're not missing anything. But yeah, no, I agree, and I think it's really interesting that you kind of went the other direction with it because it is two sides of the same coin. This same sort of like feeling of awe from a beautiful piece of music or a dancer is kind of the same as that dread and that sort of and not necessarily fear, but just that uneasiness, like you said.
yeah.
So I
And
think that's really interesting.
and before I ask you what brings this feeling about, doesn't, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't macabre mean something that's like horrifyingly beautiful, or something
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it's around
Mm-hmm.
that tone? So you still have this notion of beauty, but
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
in it's just on the opposite side of the spectrum. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. We might have lost Nick. I don't hear him, but while he's there, yeah, I would agree. I just looked it up. So the macabre is disturbing and horrifying because of involvement with or depiction of death and injury.
Oh, so there's no
So I
beauty
don't
in
know.
that.
There's no.
That's just amazing. So
No, I know.
whatever word can describe something that is both horrifying and beautiful, in the sense of like that epitome of horror, that's what I think of as far as bringing a part of this emotion from the negative side, or from the dark side. From the light side, I haven't. It's been a long time. Like I don't get that same feeling when I see dance. Like I can logically understand it, but I cannot uh, get that feeling. I guess.
Yeah.
Or I can
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, like I can rationalize it and like I understand the beauty from it from a technical point of view. Like even thinking about something like Black Swan, or it's a movie about dance, but I guess I like how would you explain, like is it just the awe of somebody flying through the air of like breaking physics a bit?
I don't know. I think the it's the witnessing of something so rare. There's only so many people in the world that can dance that way. There's only so many people that can jump to those heights. I also was a dancer, so it could have been just, the effort that's required to do that, and you just witnessing it is so intense. But it's funny because you mentioned Black Swan, and that has a little bit of a dark side to it. Um, but do you remember the end when she sort of like enmeshes in with the Dark Queen?
Yeah, where she starts to transform, starts to change a bit.
Yeah, and like that's when she does her like standing ovation performance. And I think like that scene was so well done because and she acted it so well, and I think that's kind of like part of what you there's like a symbiosis, I think. So I think that maybe that's it. Is my like the hairs stand up when I see something that by witnessing it I'm almost feeling it with them, like the tension when they jump up really high and it's just like, oh, I don't know. I mean but that could be like awe. Would yeah.
Is it like an extreme version of empathy? So like you're saying like the
I was
visual.
wondering that.
Yeah. I was saying thank you guys for taking over that conversation. Honestly, I don't know what happened to my computer, but it just decided to dump on me real quick. So
Those
No.
internet gods are so angry at
I
you for some
know.
reason.
I don't know what I did. But you guys are actually right on the money with this. And I was gonna give a little bit of more context to what you were just talking about. So,
Wonderful.
yeah. So it's so in the subsection here about neural substrates, it says that experimental studies have also shown that the tingling during frisson is accompanied by an increased electrodermal activity, which is skin conductance, with which is mediated via the activation of sympathetic nervous system. And the intensity of the tingling is a positive correlation with the magnitude of sympathetic activation. So, yes, you are both sort of hitting the nail on the head there when you are explaining that this sort of feeling to you is like being put in the situation and suspending that disbelief. Your empathy is on 11, and you're starting to feel the same sort of feelings that whatever you're watching is eliciting.
Interesting.
That's super interesting.
It's like a strange superpower, I guess. Like if you
Yeah.
get empathetic enough, can you start throwing around lightning bolts?
I mean, you can only right, exactly. Like one could only suspect that perhaps, if you were able to up your empathy enough, you'd be starting to conduct less electricity. Maybe you could power a light bulb or something.
Oh, hold on. Is that what Sith lightning is? Is just extreme empathy in the passionate form?
The Jedi had it all wrong.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Star Wars, by the way, because in the last episode, when I was talking about the two different forces that could be at play with Oumuamua, I wanted to go down like a rabbit hole of Star Wars force power, but that sounds like that would be a fun exobit sometime.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we definitely could do a force episode, maybe for May the 4th. We'll do that.
Hey,
we'll see.
There you go.
Yeah. So I had a couple more questions for you guys since it's going to be a short episode this evening. But could you guys tell me, is there a particular song that that gives you the chills? I know that's very specific, but I was trying to think of one. I couldn't necessarily I couldn't necessarily pinpoint one, but I do know what it is for me that gives me the most amount. Like even thinking about it, I just got a little chill.
Mm.
But no, it's like I don't know about you guys, but whenever somebody is singing and they hit that long sustained note, 100 out of 100 always will get the chills from me. And so I guess it's like, because we've watched a couple of shows where it's like, I don't know, we've watched like America's Got Talent or something. And when you see like like a mousy little kid with a voice of a diva, it definitely, for me, elicits that sort of sensation like automatically.
That makes sense. But like,
Love it.
how do you feel about Take on Me?
Oh yeah, that
For
high
it.
note for sure.
Yeah, that I know.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
Should we just start singing on air and try to?
Oh my god.
I actually should add that to my biking playlist. That would be quite fun.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that's a great example of that. Hitting that sort of high note is definitely one that triggers me for sure.
Interesting. Okay. For me, I'm gonna get super obscured. There's this album or song called A Reflection. I don't know who it's by. It's like a Japanese or Korean artist, but it's within this genre of death dream. And it uses very non-rhythmic, I guess, low sounds, like, but they don't really sound on point. They're really intense, and every time I listen to it, like I get that I almost get into a trance-like state as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, all the hairs rise, just start to like eyes widen. I guess pupils probably dilate, but I didn't look in the mirror. But yeah, no, that particular song or album, it's called Reflection, gets me every time.
I'll have to check that out for sure. Yeah, that's cool. Ayla, what do you think?
Well, you know what? It's funny how you notice that all of the different songs have something in common. So for me, it's definitely anything with an arpeggio kind of moment to it. Particularly if it's like a highlighted or solo arpeggio, because those just, yeah, I just feel it in my bones. Like it's so beautiful. And I'm trying to actually find the name of the song. There's it's so random. There's a Moby song that was featured in Seabiscuit, and it's instrumental only, but it's the scene where the horses like they're running around the track, and it's at night because they don't want to like give away their training secrets and stuff. But the whole movie follows all these characters. They all had some sort of like drama happen, and they came back from it. And so during this run in the middle of the night, it's this music, and it's just divine. It's absolutely divine. And if I can find the name, I will be sure to share it. But arpeggios in general, like, amazing.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. And Mike mentioned this too, is the accompaniment of the visuals with the music. I think in a lot of ways it would be difficult to have just the music. I mean, unless you're hearing something for the first time. But there is something about adding the visuals too that kind of enhances the impact. And then another little tidbit too, apparently temperature can enhance it as well. Where they said that colder temperatures tend to maximize the potentiality for this response in humans, which is the reason why cinemas are cold. I did not know that. But one of the reasons that they're cold is that it maximizes this sort of emotion out of people, which I thought was very interesting. And you can kind of, yeah, it is a little tricky. And this kind of like, reminds me a little bit of brain hacking. And I wonder how we might be able to I mean, do you think that this is a proper thing to try to utilize, or do you think that it should just kind of remain its own thing? Because I'm thinking about it as like, if you were able to sort of elicit this emotion at will, would that be of any use to you, or is it better as this thing that really just moves you? And I guess I would probably think that the latter is more true, but some people want to be able to control their minds and control their responses to things. And so what do you guys think?
Oh, personally, I love, well, it's weird. I have a love-hate relationship with letting go. So I like the songs that kind of make that like I associate that feeling of Frisson with like a giving into the beauty of the song or whatever.
Mm.
So yeah, if it was a superpower, I'd be all in.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it would be nice to be able to control it at will. My only worry, I guess I would want both. Like, I'd be able to want to switch it on, but it's probably a lot better to be like pulled into it. It's like a trance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could bring yourself into a trance, but it's not necessarily at will.
Right.
And if you're trying to explore and experience extreme empathy or those sorts of emotions, yeah, you definitely don't want to know you're doing it.
Yeah, I think that that's probably fair. And something that kind of came up to my mind too is this concept of inspiration. Because I don't know about you, but when I get this wellspring of emotion brought on by Frisson, or you know, a great piece of art, or a beautiful view, or you know, a very sincere, loving interaction with somebody that I care about, like, it inspires me. There's an energy to it. There's an energy sort of, I don't know, overabundance maybe, which leads me to be inspired to do something. And it's usually something positive. So I'm wondering, one, if you guys feel the same way, and then, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Have you guys ever experienced that too? Because it seems to me that like this emotion also is sort of like a bootstrapper to inspiration.
Mm. I hear what you're saying. Yeah. Well, and yeah, no, totally. I mean, you think about what art is, you know, the point of art, something to inspire you, something to settle you, or maybe an escape from the, you know, tragedies of life and things like that. And so I think that like wherever you are when you're listening to something, especially music, lyrics included, they can have a big impact on you. And I think that, you know, there are some songs where it motivates you to shift from one mood to another, or to shift from one mindset to another. And I would very much liken that to inspiration, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, there's definitely experiences that will move you to produce something artistic, right? Whether, like you said, like looking at art, and it's usually experienced through this feeling. Like I remember coming up with an idea for a piece of writing through a Starbucks interaction with somebody that has been a long friend, and that was in an odd way inspiring. But yeah, no, like it definitely happens. But I feel like at certain times too, you can get a compounding factor with it. So like, if you don't immediately act on the inspiration, it's not lost. It's still within you. You can go through more Frisson or more interactions or more things and kind of add on top of it to inspire you to do something bigger, I feel like. And I don't know if you guys feel the same way about that, but that's yeah, I definitely feel in a sense that it's close to inspiration. Once you get inspired, it moves you to create something artistic as well.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. That's definitely how I perceive it as well. And I think it's just an interesting mechanism. It's almost like it's contagious, right? it's like this little virus that you get, and then all of a sudden it's like your mind is like, oh, I need to pass this on. I want to give this to somebody else, you know. And I think there's something kind of really beautiful about that, because we're humans. We like to ape each other. We like to mimic each other, and when we see something inspiring, we want to be that inspiring thing. And I think there's something really beautiful about inspiration begetting more inspiration.
Is inspiration just a game of hot potato?
It seems to be, yeah. It seems to be, yeah, definitely.
No, I agree. I think it's pretty cool though that humans work in that fashion.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's really kind of sweet. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of all I had for this conversation. It wasn't going to be anything huge, but it's just something that I've been kind of thinking about for a few days now. And yeah, I think that it's kind of a beautiful thing for us to be able to move each other on a sort of bioelectrical way. Um, and that having that sort of emotion sticking with us, like you said, Mike, like you don't have to utilize that emotion immediately. It's almost like you can hold it and call back to it whenever you want. Because like I can still get pieces of it if I think about something that inspires me. Like I still feel that emotion. It comes right back. So I think that it's really kind of interesting.
No, most definitely. And it's crazy how long it could last too, because it could. I mean, I feed off of some memories that are decades old, right?
Mm-hmm.
And still go back to tap an emotional source and it's still there. That will just never ends, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, whether or not I wonder if it can be a little damaging key though overall to try to move oneself like that over and over, and like if the process, because you're passing inspiration to somebody else, but you don't want that to be like a toxic sort of inspiration, right?
Mm-hmm.
That if there is such a thing. So there has to be some weird distilling process as well through this process of Frisian. Um, but no, it's a beautiful thing for sure. But would you rather be? So would you rather be someone that inspires someone to create something great, or would you rather create something great yourself?
Mm. Oh, that's a great question. Um, I think much closer to my reality is maybe creating something that's just good enough to inspire somebody to do something better. I think that that's a realistic sort of outlook, and I don't necessarily think that's bad. I would be very flattered if somebody, if I made something and it didn't have to be the greatest thing in the world. If somebody, just one person, found it inspirational and they created something amazing, then I think that that's a win. What about you? Would you rather be the creator or the inspired?
I've always enjoyed being like the impetus for change. I've always
Mm,
enjoyed being that creating, like you said, something just good enough for somebody else to like look at and go, like just affect them in some way or sort, and then
yeah,
take that and just go nuts and
yeah,
create something amazing.
absolutely. And there's almost like a positive feedback loop with that too, because you're almost living vicariously, and it's that triggering of the sympathetic nervous system again, right? So it's like, when you create something, somebody finds value in that, they create something, you find value in that, and it's just this feedback loop of value that we do over and over again to make ourselves feel good. We really are just like rats in cages hitting the little stimulus button, aren't we? Just- we're just addicts for feel goods.
Of course.
For
Yeah,
value.
that's
It could
right,
be
for
feel
value.
goods, it could be any kind of thing. Um, no, I love it. I love it. And it's funny too, because I was thinking about the idea of like frisson, and how it kind of makes me think a little bit about the way that the brain works, because
Mm,
so like with deja vu, I recently learned that people think that it really has to do with memory, and that when you experience deja vu, there was an implicit memory recognition. So your subconscious notices something's familiar, but your conscious mind doesn't understand like what it's noticing or what's familiar about it.
mhm.
So you get a weird feeling. And so I just wonder if with the songs or the sounds that kind of evoke that emotion, I wonder if there's also some sort of element where like the brain's doing like a weird thing,
Mm.
and to be just curious about like why our brains are wired for that value or something like that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's a mystery to me as well. I don't really know. I mean, I guess it's all about that sort of like you said, it's the value, it's the what do you call that? The pleasure centers of the brain.
Since say dopamine.
Yeah, the dopamine
Mhm.
hits. Yeah. There was a little part that I missed in the sort of the brain bit, but they were talking about hedonic spots in the brain, and that frisson comes from one of those hedonic spots in the brain. Now, obviously, hedonism is the pleasure centers, right? So, something about these this particular emotion is an embodiment of pleasure, and so that's why I meant when we were like, you know, saying that humankind is just a whole bunch of lab rats getting hit with the dopamine,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I mean, to can I make it a little bit more, I guess, romantic?
sure, please do.
So that it does make sense, at least, that it's like hitting those hedonic centers, especially when you like count in things of extreme empathy and then tie that into the act of like making love. And I mean that versus, you know, coitus or what have you. It's your favorite word, isn't it?
Right up there with piloerection.
Yes, nice.
But if you consider like the act of making love a form of, you know, physical intimacy and extreme empathy, because you're trying, like, you're becoming one in that physical sense, you're physically connecting. It makes sense that empathetically through this visual and auditorial stimuli that you're connecting on that same mental level, and your brain doesn't know the difference, right? It's just taking in these inputs and then doing something with it. So yeah, no, it's like almost like you're mind melding with whatever you're engaging with.
Yeah, I think that that's a really apt sort of analysis for sure. It almost kind of mind melding almost kind of reminds me of this, you know, the concept we've come back to a million times, the fifth dimensional sort of concept. Perhaps there's something within that emotion that helps us break into a higher dimension of consciousness. Even if it's for a brief moment, and then perhaps that's why it's so easy to return to those moments as well, because they're almost out of time completely.
Yeah, like
I mean, there's those moments like I can't remember what I had for breakfast or lunch, you know, whatever 2 years ago, but I can remember the moment that I was awe-inspired by something or really moved by something, and I can visit those, like you said before, you can visit those moments and you can tap from that wellspring at any time.
yeah, no, for sure. Like, so I guess there are intersections within that fifth dimensional space, like those collisions of two vectors, right? I see it as colliding and then creating that feeling, whatever that feel like. Yeah, I guess frisson is that feeling, which is cool. Very cool.
Super cool. Super cool. Ayla, you got anything else?
I found out the name of the Moby song.
Oh, cool. Do it.
It's called Ever Loving.
Ever Loving by Moby. Check it out, everyone. Yeah, very cool. Do you have any other thoughts before we wrap up?
No.
Fair enough.
No.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
No, it's just, you know, because, you know, my mind kind of went into the gutter a little bit. And so I'm monitoring myself a little.
Oh, well, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Everything's all good. We're all adults here. Everything's fine.
Well, I'm not going to say
anything?
anything.
I know. I don't expect you to. Don't worry. Well, awesome,
Okay,
guys.
but wait, no, I have
Yes.
a quick question though.
Okay,
You have a
yeah.
question. Okay.
Yeah.
So this pertains to music, but they kind of make it broad and say art and stuff.
Hmm.
So have you ever felt like Tom Haverford and like did a piece of art give you a sense of frisson?
I don't know if it like art on a paint, on a canvas.
Yeah,
Um,
like 2D art.
yeah, I don't know if 2D art has. Certainly, watching somebody paint has. Certainly, other modalities of art, like you said, dancing, definitely. Um, Even just I don't know what else. What else could there be? I mean, acting does for sure.
Of course.
Somebody's emotions, like that's a very easy one.
But I asked specifically like art, like painting art or drawing,
Yeah.
because I do wonder, like of the art forms, if you are gonna be a painter or I don't know, use charcoal or whatever, um, like yeah, does
It
I
has
can't.
for me.
Mhm.
It definitely has for me. Edward Hopper's Nighthawks.
I'm gonna look it
Uh,
up.
yeah, it's that famous painting of the cafe with like the three or four figures. Just like you have three people sitting there, and you have the guy working behind the counter. It's like
Hmm.
embodies that feeling of like loneliness and emptiness, that sort of stuff.
That feel okay, yeah, that
Yeah,
photo
I
or
went
painting.
to Chicago maybe years ago now, and I sat in front of it for like close to an hour before my girlfriend at the time had to pull me away. Where she was like, "We there's other rooms to look at. There's more art." And I was like, "No, no, 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 no." And
Have an
it's
emotional reaction here.
yeah, to me, it's that feeling of closeness, but
Mm.
lacking something. There's still something missing in that, and like just getting drawn into the possible stories of the people sitting there, and especially with the guy with the like with his back to you,
Mhm.
that just idea of loneliness and being outside and seeing that those three characters from that
Hmm.
perspective was something that for whatever reason, I mean, if I wonder if I did like a color analysis on it, like a computational color analysis, what would come of it. But
Mm.
um just the latent story in it and the visual for whatever reason pulled me into it very deeply. And like doing just some learning about it kind of brought me to this notion. Like I've always been a workaholic in a sense, so brings me to this thing of like the inherent loneliness that certain types of work can bring. And I think that is the empathetic nervous or brain system that my brain was interacting with when staring at that painting. I mean, I have it
Mm.
in my living room. I have a print of it. I didn't steal it, but I have a print of it in my living room. And like on heavy days or days where like I beat myself up because I didn't work enough, I just stare at it just
Hmm.
for an unknown amount of time.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm wishing I knew a specific instance. Honestly, I'm so uncultured. I don't think I've seen iconic paintings in real life. I think I might have the same sort of response if I ever saw one, but
That's
um,
right, because you've never been to the Getty Center, right?
no, I've never been to the Getty. I've only been to LACMA and a couple other smaller stuff. But yeah, I never been to like I've never seen like the classics, you know.
I just was so shocked that you've never been, like, because you grew up in LA. I just feel like
Yeah.
every school's dragged some kids to the Getty at some point,
Nah.
and
We never had
nah,
field trips in high school.
man, field trips are the best.
One of the coolest things I would recommend if you go to the Getty, go there alone with a pair of headphones on, listening to
Yeah,
whatever you want.
I
It's
like that.
quite
Mhm,
it's quite the experience for sure.
Yeah, I
and they
would
have
definitely do
gardens
that.
too.
Hey, what up?
They have, like, a whole garden area as well, which is stunning if you just
Oh
walk
yeah.
it by yourself.
And then you have those overviews of like the whole west side, the 405. You can see downtown LA. It's just
Mhm.
a gorgeous place to be any time of the day. And being alone, you can really take it all in without worrying about, we got to hit this section at this time. We have to see this. artists. We have to see this
Oh my
thing,
gosh.
and you don't have to worry about any of that scheduling.
Schedules would drive me
Mhm.
crazy with like museums and stuff. And one thing that people, if you're listening to this and you're not from the LA area, there's actually two locations for the Getty. So there's a second Getty extension that's off of PCH, and it's
The
more
villa.
sculpture oriented. Yeah, the villa. You need a reservation. But my goodness, I remember the first time I went there, I was kind of speechless, like the architecture, and the way things are. Like I never really appreciated sculpture until I went there, because it just reminded me of how like the sculpture would have been back in the day, for sure.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
oh well, I'm
And
just gonna
what?
share one.
Yes.
Well,
Okay,
and
go ahead.
see, you got me talking.
My guy, all
Well,
right.
Mike, you were talking about like your reaction to art, and you reminded me that Van Gogh's The Scream was something that I think sticks out in my mind, similar to what you're talking about. Because in that one, I was really young. I think I was in second grade, and our teacher was talking all about Van Gogh, and we did like self portraits like Van Gogh, and we did paintings in blue to talk about his blue period. But the Scream she was talking about, and I remember, as a kid, everything's rosy, like, books and things like that. So it was like kind of like my first introduction to maybe like the shadow self, and like even the colors and the way it was painted, and it
Just
scared.
just a quick note and correction. It's not Van Gogh, it's Edvard Munch.
Oh, it is Edvard Munch.
Mhm.
Oh, that's crazy. Because
I've always thought it was Van Gogh too, to be honest. But
Yeah,
yeah.
very similar.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, that well, whoever it is, that one.
That
Because
particular one. Just look up the scream. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
there it is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I looked up Van Gogh Screaming Man, and it came up. So like, damn, I didn't even notice that. But you're right.
The style is very Van Gogh-esque for sure.
Mhm,
No, it
mhm.
is. It's like there's a song. I forgot who it's by that sounds. It sounds like Led Zeppelin. And, oh God.
There's a sound that sounds like Zed Lip.
There's
Wait,
there's a song that sounds like Led Zeppelin, and like if
oh,
I
but
heard
that's
it,
not
it's not them at all. It's but it's one of those things. But I feel you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The scream did it for you.
it did. So I guess maybe we were talking about people he influenced. I don't know, but I remember being young and seeing that, and just really being like, whoa, like that just it opened a doorway to like a whole new, like, genre of stuff, I guess.
No,
Nice.
definitely. There's always those. I think that's why those classics exist. I mean, for Van Gogh, I was really fortunate as a kid because my mother was a bookkeeper for LACMA, so I
Oh,
was able
nice.
to go there whenever I pleased. And when she took me there to actually see some Van Gogh paintings, and it was the bedroom. Have you seen the bedroom?
I'm gonna look it up. Maybe I haven't.
For some
Mm.
reason, it was like I just wanted to look. It made me wonder about this space, but it was the same sort of the same kind of feeling, I guess. Also, too, as a kid, I didn't have a bedroom, so maybe it was some of that as well at play. But it was one of those things that pulled me in. That years later, Edward Hopper would have me sitting looking at one frame for an hour.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, yeah, Sayla, what's up?
sorry. No, I
No
think there might be
worries.
a delay. Go for it, Nick.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it seems like Mike really digs the arrangements in paintings.
Oh, I was just going to say it's interesting how it's subjective. You know what I mean? There are certain universal things, but then also deeply subjective things that bring about this emotion as well, which I think is kind of cool. Like um, it's very much painted by your own personality and sort of what means the most to you, which I think is really kind of beautiful too. As well as there's this also a universal quality within, I guess a greater context of certain things like the classics being at the apex or the top of this sort of emotional scale.
Yeah, no, and it plays like Yeah, you have, and like even within a cultural context, right? Because somebody from Eastern culture may not feel the same way about it because
Mm-hmm.
their value systems are simply different as far as what can invoke that feeling or what triggers those feelings, that sensation.
Yeah, it's great. It's very, very cool. I love it. Well, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. Any last words from y'all guys? Ayla, you got anything?
Yeah,
Yeah. All right. Well, we very much appreciate all of you guys listening. Sorry about the technical difficulties. It's been a wacky Friday. So thanks for hanging in there with us. And thank you for Ayla and Mike taking the reins while my computer crapped out on me. That was a disaster, but averted. Thank you very much, you guys. I very much appreciate it. And we appreciate you guys out there. Please feel free to leave us some feedback and maybe consider following us on YouTube. That would be very much appreciated. Other than that, just stay out there, Cognonauts, and we will catch you on the next Exofathom. Good night.
Peace.
later.